Hello, it's the month of November. It's the month of Thanksgiving, and I want to say thank you this month as part of your membership in receiving Spellbound each month. I want to provide you with a resource, tell you about a resource. And this is actually a resource that you've heard about before from me, though I want to go into a little more depth on this particular resource, specifically how I go about using it to benefit. One of the things that I hear a lot from people when I talk to them about subscribing to this business coaching program is that the first reaction I get beyond the investment for it is it's content overload. I have so much material and information that I have to get through on a monthly basis. I'm just not able to do it, and therefore I've got to pick and choose where I'm putting my time and my investment in it. So I'm not here to convince you to invest in this resource, but rather show you how I use this resource. Before I jump into it, I want to tell you a quick story. I'm about to finish out the 7th year as a contributing author in what used to be the Elite Gold Crown Mastermind business coaching program. It's now the Millionaire Maker coaching program, and I'll explain briefly why the name change. But this is about, I think I'm finishing out my 7th year as a contributing author. So it's 2019 when you're receiving this. If we go back 7 years, that's 2012. Prior to 2012, I enrolled as a member in the program in 2010. So I was receiving it and consuming it for 2 years before I became a contributing author to it. I remember having lunch with one of the co-publishers of this, Pete Lillo. We were having lunch at a Winking Lizard in Macedonia, Ohio. And while we were having lunch, Pete said to me, he says, I think you ought to write a publication and contribute to this thing, and I think you ought to do it specifically on relationship marketing with all that you do in what you do. And that started in 2012, and here we are, 2019, now 7 years of contributing to it. So, quick history on the name change. So it was the Elite Gold Crown Mastermind Business Coaching Program, because when people get this, they tend to think that this is just a culmination of newsletters, of printed publications, when in reality, it's much more than that. It is actually coaching, and I'm going to show you how I turn what many see as newsletters into actual coaching that I'm able to use and help double my business over the past, 9 years now, 10 years. So the name change was originally Elite Gold Crown Mastermind Business Coaching Program. It is now the Millionaire Maker Business Coaching Program. And the name change primarily is because of, as you've seen, I've written about in past issues of Spellbound, my friend, my client, my mentor, Dan Kennedy, with his health and having a scare, a brush with death, he is become disabled right now. He's in rehab and fighting back, which there's a lesson in that. But he's in rehab and is limited on how much he can contribute into the program. So what Pete has done is reformulated the program and made it the Millionaire Maker, and you're getting 40 years worth of Dan Kennedy content. And much of what's coming out now in this program has been unpublished, meaning it's never been seen by anybody before. So between Pete Lillo and myself, we have probably combined the largest archive of Dan Kennedy material, marketing, sales, training material that exists today. Much of it has gone unpublished. Much of that is now going to be released through the Millionaire Maker program. So I want to jump into this and show you how I used it and how I continue to use this as a coaching program in and of itself. First and foremost, I want you to see that this is a box of months. This is probably 2 years worth in this box of past months memberships. So the first thing that I would recommend to all members who join the program is that you have a few tools. And the best tools that you can have is a set of highlighter markers and a red pen. These things are critical. These are what I use when I go through these every month. All right, highlighters and a red pen, and then a stack of Post-it notes, or what I use is actually the larger Post-it notes, so I can make notes, and you'll see how that is. So let's jump into This is November's issue. So when you open it up, first thing in here is a reprint out of a magazine, the Six Figure Coach magazine, an article on Dan Kennedy itself. But I want to get into the actual content material. So one of the Kennedy-specific pieces is the marketing your services. And as I said, the highlighter is a magic wand in these things. So in this month's issue of Marketing Your Services, which is Dan's, so as I opened this up and I went through, here's how I go about all of these pieces. Not just in this program, but anything. Magazines. I'm always gleaning and looking for content that I can use either to help grow my own business, or I can help use on a client's project in growing their business. In this particular issue, I jumped in, and you'll see throughout the issue, I have taken and I have highlighted throughout the entire issue. And you're going to see that in all of the issues, all of the publications within this program. When I first get it, I first skim through it, I quickly glance through it, look for things that may jump out at me. I'm looking for headlines, subheadlines. If they are, I'll take my pen and I'll mark it. Then what I'll do is I'll go back through and I'll read it in detail. Once I've gone through and read it, I now have an idea of what the content is. I'll go back through it now with a more laser-focused idea of looking for nuggets. And that's the key thing in anything that I go through and read, is I'm really looking for nuggets that I can pull out of it, that I can use. So as I was going through this particular piece, on the first page, I highlighted a piece Dan said. It's about find the hidden hook or benefit, which is really the overarching theme of this particular issue. As I got into the issue, I found specific pieces in here where he pulls out and he refers to Gary Halpert in regards to the lack of depth and disinterest in the depth of knowledge. But the key point is I made a highlight on that as a reminder to me to always stay connected to history. Always go back and look at. Don't try to reinvent or recreate the wheel, but go back and find what's already been done, what's already been successful for people. And success leaves footprints. All you've got to do is find them and follow them. In here, there are footprints, and all I'm doing is highlighting them so I can pull them out. But as I go through, I then made some other highlights in here, and this particular piece was specifically applicable to some work I'm doing right now with independent dentists. And that is a matter of helping them understand and promoting the fact of how much effort that we put into the pre-qualification with prospects before we see them, before we talk to them for the first time, has a significant impact on how predisposed they will become to do business with us before we get to the sales process. So there's a piece in here, a couple of pieces in here that Dan talks about that I think are specific to a pre-consultation message, meaning getting a message out there about preparing the prospect for the meeting with you. So I've got that highlighted here. There's a piece in here that Dan shared out of his own procedures, policies as far as presenting his services, where I made a note on it, I highlighted it, and I made a note. It says one-step close, which means that rather than going through multiple steps to be able to get the customer to say yes, he has a process in here that he uses that literally gets them to yes in one step in the first meeting. So that's critical to me. As I go through, there's some other pieces in here. I made some highlights. This whole area here is highlighted, and I made a note. It says versioning. Versioning, and how Dan presents it here is, and he gives examples in here, is of postcards, specific pieces that people are using and how they are versioning or customizing direct mail pieces to their prospects in order to increase response for the direct mail pieces. Now, this format that Dan talks about in here can be used for direct mail, it can be used for video, it can be used for online, email, website, anything. The point is that within this one piece, I have found at least 3 or 4 nuggets that I can utilize either in my own business or in a client's business. So let's continue on into some other pieces. There is another piece in here called the Millionaire Maker, which is really a highlight sheet of several different types of resources that are available to be able to glean more out of. In the program is my relationship marketing newsletter, and one of the things that I do in my specific publication is, again, borrowing from something I learned from Dan, and that is creating a seminar in a box or a seminar in a newsletter. And in this particular month, I am sharing in detail work that I have done in getting clients free publicity. Now, the caveat on that is free publicity that brings you money. So I go through in this month's issue and detail specific pieces that are important for you to understand and things that you need to leverage if you're going to go after free publicity. For instance, how to talk to the media, how to submit press releases, what need to be in press releases, when to send out the press releases, what the press releases should look like, as well as examples of the media that my press releases have generated for the clients, understanding the media itself, understanding the mechanics of a great media release that actually gets interest, gets you publicity. And then I give you a case study of the most successful free publicity campaign that I ever did for a client, which generated nearly $200,000 to the client, all from free publicity, zero investment for all of that. So again, I didn't go through and highlight mine because I wrote it, but if I were to jump into this, I'd be highlighting this extensively with pieces, looking for how can I take and apply these things in my own business. Next, we jump into another piece that is in every month's issue that's called Legends of Marketing. And oftentimes I have people tell me that they don't understand, the value in this particular piece. Because really what it is an archive or a reporting of past marketing people or marketing campaigns or advertising campaigns that have been highly successful. And again, when you go through any of this stuff, you have to be looking for the nuggets to pull out. And this particular month, Pete features the Marlboro Man, so the old Marlboro Man advertising campaign for Marlboro cigarettes, and includes in here a picture of the Marlboro Man. But as I went through, I found the nuggets and highlighted the particular nuggets. Now, how will I be able to use these? I don't have anything in particular right now, but there are pieces in here that I will be able to go back to that will spark an idea, they'll spark a direction, they'll give me incentive and inspiration as to where to go. So it gives me focus. So if you've ever sat down to write something, specifically a marketing piece or a sales letter, and you've sat and stared at a blank screen, that's called writer's block. Well, see, I don't believe in writer's block, because writer's block is nothing more than the lack of inspiration or direction. And my highlights and what I have highlighted out and pulled out of here, that becomes my inspiration. And it gives me that trigger to be able to move me forward. The other thing that's in here that's interesting that Pete reports upon out of the Marlboro, and I made a note in here that says testing. And they talk about in here how they tested. So superficially, when you look at the Marlboro cigarette campaign, you know the Marlboro Man, and you think, okay, well, that was just genius. Well, it was, but they didn't get to it immediately. It goes into how they got to it, and a big part of it is testing, which is all marketing. All marketing and advertising is testing. And then another one of our contributors is Ben Glass, who is the top attorney in the country for personal injury. He's also a coach to thousands of independent lawyers across the country. But in Ben's piece, Live Life Big, again, pieces that I found in here, and I'll put this up. There's a couple of pieces in Ben's publication this month. One applies to attitude, and I made a highlight for attitude because it refocuses the thinking. And his particular piece in here is every economy is good for some people and not so good for others. It is what you make of it, of the circumstances, that matters. Now, I highlighted that primarily as a kick in the ass for me, as far as refocusing your thought, because it's easy to get caught up in the crap reported in the media. The other thing in here that has nothing to do with business, has more to do with personal, is that Ben, who has 9 kids, wrote an article about I was right about this college stuff. And he gets into specifically is it important that you get your kids into the best colleges? What is the important thing about getting your child into college? And he's got some very key insights that I made highlights on here that don't apply for me to business, but they give me some thinking, some clarity, because my son is 15 years old. We're going to be looking at college in the next several years. And I'll pull this out, and when we get to that point, it's going to be very helpful in keeping my thinking focused correctly on that. And then another publication in here is from my friend Dan Cricks, who is a coach to the independent auto repair industry. Now, you may be watching this and you're thinking, but I'm not in auto repair. I'm not in law. I don't do videos. How can this apply to me? They're nuggets. They're not specific. So I want to tell you a little story to frame this. Years ago, when I was working for a small independent production company, and I remember attending a Tom Hopkins sales seminar one year, and Tom Hopkins is his focus, his niche is in the real estate, residential and commercial real estate. And I remember going to the sales conference, and it was fabulous. It was the first time I had ever seen Tommy Hopkins in person, and it was fantastic. Great content, wonderful stuff. And as it was wrapping up and people were starting to file out of the arena, we stayed back with all of our salespeople, and we started talking about what we had seen. And I remember one of the young sales guys that we had, he was fresh, he was new with us, and he goes, well, this has all been great stuff, but we're not in the real estate business. Meaning that Tom Hopkins is in the real estate business. We were in the business of selling video productions. So therefore, what Tom Hopkins had to share, and the examples he used related to real estate, didn't apply to us because he was in real estate and we were in video production. So his disconnect was that how does it apply? You see, we make it apply. Just all this information that's available in this program, we make it apply. We find the application. We're not looking for the actual application as it's presented by each of us. However, we're looking for how can we adapt? How can we implement that? So Dan Cricks had some wonderful things in this month's. One thing I highlighted and pulled out here was marketing to existing clients. And he gives some key bullet points with regards to why you want to do that. Two things. For me, it's a refocus. It keeps me refocused on the fact that I've got to continue to remarket to all of my clients. But it's also insightful for being able to share with my clients as to why they have to continue to market to existing clients. As you go through, he's got a wonderful idea in here about being able to differentiate yourself in November at Thanksgiving and be able to cut through all of the nonsense that will happen next month in December with all the Christmas cards and so forth, but actually a wonderful campaign that's laid out in there. And then last thing I think I had highlighted in here was regards to the 4 words that give you distinct advantage and something that most consumers prefer. And this is a piece that he shares that every business that fits this category must use. It is something that I have used with existing clients. I have a client who has military experience, has military history, and we leverage that using this. His are more than 4 words, but using this 4-word strategy, and it is significant. So that is pretty much how I go through each month. Kind of 3 steps. I go through and skim it. I go back through and I read it in its entirety without any preconceived ideas of what am I looking for. Once I've consumed it, I go back through it with a highlighter and I highlight out the nuggets. All right. Now I've got all that. And there's a lot of material here. So once I have all that material, how am I going to be able to use this? Well, the next thing that I do is I take, and this all comes in a folder and it comes in an envelope. What I do is I then take my pad, my larger pad of Post-its, and I will take and make bullet points. I'll make bullet points of the specific nuggets that I had found and gleaned in here. I put those bullet points right on the outside of the cover. This whole thing, if I have something specific that I have for myself I'm working on, or if I have something for a client I'm working on, I'll make a photocopy of it and I'll throw it into that client's project box so that I have it. But then once I have that, I put the Post-it note right on the outside of it, and that becomes part of my archive then. It goes into my box. You'll see that I have last month's issue of the Millionaire Maker program. I have last month's and all the way down through. So now, when I'm looking for something, I have an idea, I can go back through this, literally just pull the envelope, scan my bullet points, and I find a piece. If I find a piece that's applicable, I'm able to pull it out and go to it. So it's really just a matter of organizing all this content. I see it happen all the time. People will tell me, hey, it's great content, but it doesn't apply to me. They read it and they throw it away. See, this is not material that's intended to be read and thrown away like a magazine. This is intended to be read, consumed, and adapted and then implemented for yourself. So it truly is a coaching program. So that's an invaluable resource that I've been using for nearly 10 years now. It has easily helped me double my business just in the content and material that I've been able to glean from it and apply in my own business. So I highly recommend that you subscribe to this, join this for at least a month or two, get it. Believe me, it is far less than the cost of a Starbucks coffee on a daily basis, and it will give you material that can help propel your business and quite easily double the size of your business if you just simply look for the nuggets that are in there. Thank you very much. I've included an application in the packet with you. I highly urge you to fill it out, send it back, fax it, email it. Give it a try for a month or two. If after that you don't see any value in the content that is being brought to you each month, then cancel. There's no long-term commitments in it. Cancel it out. And no harm, no foul, but you will have given it a try and you will know that it's either for you or it's not for you. So Mark Twain said that many, many years from now, we will be more disappointed in the things that we didn't do than the things that we did. So thank you very much. Happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next month.